Good evening. Welcome to Live United. Live United is an opportunity to learn about all the great resources here in the Monadnock region that are meeting the needs of our citizens, especially our children, families, youth. And today we have the good fortune of having with us Lindsay Bartlett from Monadnock Family Services Acting Out program. And Acting Out is one of those superb services offering support and work with our youth, particularly, I believe, like the 10-year-old and up population. Yes. So Lindsay's here to tell us more about Acting Out, give us some updates on some of the things that are happening with Acting Out right now. So welcome, Lindsay.
Well, thank you. Very much.
It's super to have you here. You know, Acting Out's been around for a while now. It's probably something, at least the name, people are a little bit familiar with. And but I'm not sure they're really sure what you do. So tell us a little bit about what is Acting Out.
Well, Acting Out is like my dream job, you know. I get to act out and with wonderful students. And Acting Out is many things. And I do want to add that actually it's 25 years since Acting Out really started this year. So it's a big year for us. Lots of changes. I would say that the constant for Acting Out is meeting the needs, and as we know, those change. They're always changing. The needs for students, middle school and high school, so we do have some as young as 10, but usually a little bit older, but we do offer programs for the younger age groups. And it's an opportunity for students to through the arts, we're not an arts program, but we, through theater, enable them to talk about, act out, discuss, learn about the issues and the challenges that come with being a student, becoming an adolescent. So it changes. In a middle school, a lot of the needs of students, there are a lot of social issues that come up. You know, bullying has been the big one for the last few years. I mean, bullying has always happened, but people are looking at it in a different way now. And there are some different kinds of bullying that we're addressing that are a little subtler, and they don't always come from the students only. You know, we all have an ability as human beings sometimes to think thoughts or, you know, and maybe not always treat people as well because we're challenged by them. And a lot of my experiences with this age group are my work in residential care. When I first got out of school, I spent a lot of time with you know, troubled, at-risk, you know, students, children from a very young age. The thing is that we're all at risk. All our students are at risk, you know, with the kind of society that, that we're heading into, the new concerns about drugs. It used to be, you know, it was marijuana and drinking and some other, and we've gone through everything now. Now we're talking about heroin. You know, it's very much in the newspapers, it's happening, a lot of homelessness. And so these issues affect all of us. So I want to make that clear that this is a program for our students become involved. They volunteer. They want to be involved. Nobody's making them come. Sometimes, you know, guidance counselors might identify certain students that could benefit from this. But the bottom line is they want to come. And a lot of these students don't have a lot of other groups that they're involved in. Some of them tend to be, you know, they're not into athletics, they don't like the drama club, they're not into other clubs, but for them, Acting Out is the one place where they feel like they can come and explore and learn that they do have options in their life that maybe they didn't see before. So what we do, first of all, we're a welcoming, safe place for any young person who wants to come and first of all have fun, and that is important. You know, we all know what happens when we have fun, right? What happens in the brain and the dopamine and all that. Plenty of studies that show, you know, what happens. Well, a lot of these students don't really have a lot of fun in their lives, and sometimes that's why they turn to mind-altering substances, right? Because they want to feel good. And then we all know what happens when that, you know, once we get hooked and the addiction settles in. So we're trying to get to these students before they make that choice so that they feel like they have a life worth losing. It's very easy to say, you know, I remember the big campaign years ago, you know, just say no. Well, you know, just say no if it were really that simple. I mean, we all know how easy it is to become addicted to something, you know, whether it's an addiction that will kill us or an addiction that will just keep our savings account low, you know. So we try and address these things before they happen. And what they've shown through many studies, alcoholics, addicts who have recovered, in order for them to recover, there's a lot of work that they had to do. And take, for example, a 12-step program. In a 12-step program, one of the first roads to recovery is, first of all, to acknowledge that they have a problem, acknowledge their challenges, and then they go through these 12 steps that show them, you know, that they can't do this alone. They need support, they need community, and they need to take an honest, hard look at their lives. And they do a 4th step, and in the 4th step, they look at all the things they've done to contribute to this, and realize that often there's a lot of anger and victimhood and blaming society. So when children come in, when students come in, we acknowledge, yes, these are challenges, yes, these are challenges, and then maybe you have some, you know, a lot of children come in with labels. Well, we all know what labels can do to us, and what we learn is, what the students learn is that everybody has some kind of challenges, and some are more obvious than other. But if we can recognize those challenges, turn them around and see them as a gift rather than deficit, and this again is what happens to addicts in recovery. They take a hard look at their life and realize, oh my goodness, this is what I'm up against, but this is what I need to do to get beyond it. And they develop self-esteem, they develop confidence, and sometimes these attributes were never there in the first place, which is why they picked up, because what have I got to lose? So what we're trying to do is to show the students through games, improv, team building, resilience building, scene development, you know, playing a character in a completely different realm of life, seeing a different point of view, a different perspective. They start to develop these, this self-esteem and this sense of being and sense of self-worth and the belief that they do have the opportunity to have a full life. So let's learn all those skills before we have to pick up, fall down, and years of using before we reach our bottom, and then we go to a program.
So I think one of the things that could be helpful for our audience that may be viewing is really understanding there's 2 sort of aspects to acting out. And I think what people are most familiar with is that acting out may go into the schools and do these large shows for the student body, or they may be doing them for citizens out there as part of special events. And the piece you're talking about is really the development of the team of people that end up going out and doing these performances.
Right.
And that they're really highlighting social issues. At the same time that they're highlighting those social issues out for the greater public, it sounds like they may be developing all of these skills that become incremental in both their social lives, in their early years and the transitions they may be going through, but at the same time, in the longer term, the impact when they move into, whether it's a transition into a different educational setting or perhaps into the workforce or into being part of a family.
Exactly, right.
So there's really those 2 sides of acting out, and I really want the audience to hear that, because I do think the part they're most familiar with is that very public persona that acting out puts out. Yeah. So 25 years of doing this, and I know we're going to, in a couple of minutes here, show some slides just to show what some of the students may be going through, and you have pictures of some of their practice to prepare themselves, both socially and emotionally for themselves, and those aspects you're talking about, confidence, self-esteem. It sounds like ability to communicate.
Yes.
And trust. And I love the element of fun. You know, my audience, you hear me talk about this quite often, that, you know, fun is my great friend Carl Ronke always says, functional understanding not necessary, that it's really
I like that one.
It's really about just that element of that sense of belonging. So you've had a lot of students over a lot of years, in 25 years. Where are you now in the Monadnock region? Are you in the schools? Are you in the communities? What are you connecting with?
Well, we are not in as many places as we'd like to be, and that's one of the changes we're looking for. Of course, we all know that funding, is getting more competitive. We don't have the donors that we used to have. But what we're trying to do right now is focusing, and we're in a bit of a transition right now. Eric Snare, who's been with Acting Out since he was at a middle school, I mean, a great example of a student that's been through the process and come out through the other end developing like amazing. I mean, this young man, has so many wonderful skills, and he's given back to the community. And it's actually been it's been an interesting year because we transitioned. Eric is still with the agency, so we're very lucky to still have him. But he's moving on and doing some other kind of work. And he, I lost my train of thought for a second. He is, first of all, he's taken these students, he's been with them as a peer, he's been with them as an assistant director and then director, and now he's moving on. So it's been an interesting year to have this person leave that's been such a part, of the Acting Out program. And so coming in and filling in those shoes has been really interesting. So we are a bit of a transition point because Eric's moved on, and also because there are a lot of students that are going to be moving on, in their seniors and it's senior year, and then we've got a lot of new students coming in who are some of them brand new, have never done this before. So my hope is to we gather twice a week with high schoolers, once at the high school on Friday afternoon, right after school.
And that's here in Keene?
That's in Keene, yeah, Keene High School. And then we also meet on Tuesday evenings. And that is for any student in high school. Really, we welcome, in fact, we love it when other communities come in. Unfortunately, sometimes it's a little bit difficult because of transportation, but that's a change that I'd like to see happen so that we get more Monadnock students coming. On Tuesday night, it's mostly just Keene High students. And on Tuesdays, it's a very different feel than Fridays. Fridays is in the school environment. They've just come from school, and it's for an hour and a half. On Tuesday nights, it's in a different space. It's at our rehearsal space on Vernon Street. And students are invited to come in as early as from 5:30 to 6:30 to just come socialize, bring their dinner, bring their homework. There's games. I mean, and just sort of socialize. And then from 6:30 to 9 o'clock, we have improv. So we have 2.5 hours opposed to an hour and a half. So Tuesday nights is more of a sort of relaxed discussion group and the development of a performance team. And that's just beginning right now, trying to establish, which actors want to be a little bit more committed, and maybe they would come on Fridays as well, and work on developing their own character that they can play in any scenario that might come up, whether we're dealing with bullying. Maybe we've been asked to do a show at the local middle school, a half-an-hour show, so we would develop that, and we come up with different scenarios. And this is something that I facilitate this happening, but these are their ideas, these are their solutions. And when I see something, whether I can see it with a different perspective experience, and I can ask a question, then that will prompt them to, oh yeah, we should do that. But it's coming from them. What would they like to have heard when they were a middle schooler, and some of the stories they tell about their middle school years. So this is a chance for them to create something that they wish they'd had, and also to go into the schools, feel empowered, be a leader. And that's probably one of the most important things about this program is the development of leadership. Some students come in very quiet, very never wanted to be on stage, but they come because something grabs them, and it could be that they watched a performance 4 years ago when they were, in the middle school, and they come, and gradually some of these quieter ones turn out they have the strongest voices, and maybe they're not always present on stage, they're not always the ones putting up their hand, I want to do that, I want to do that, but they're very attentive audience members, and they notice things and they pick up on them, and they share scenario ideas, and they have a different perspective. And that is why we want all kinds of personalities in our group, because we learn to listen to each other. We develop a culture of safety, confidentiality, and some of the things shared are stories that these students have never shared with anyone else, not even with their guidance counselor, not even with, it's something about telling your story and being heard, and that's something else that we do. We work with certain audiences, and they get to tell a little story, and our actors will, perform that story, not always, sometimes abstractly. Sometimes a feeling might be mentioned that's quite heavy. Maybe it's dealing with suicide, maybe it's dealing with extreme loss that, to make a scene over that, you could never do it justice. But maybe by just creating a beautiful, fluid sculpture without words and just emotions can sometimes be enough to hold that moment, give it back to the audience member, and then the audience member feels touched, and the actors feel like they've offered something. And incidentally, that's another big part of recovery, is giving back to the community. They've shown in depression, people that suffer with depression, sometimes thinking of somebody else, doing something for somebody else, is the thing that gets them out of this dark place they're in. And I've seen that a lot with the students that come in at the end of the week. And in fact, a hard week, they feel challenged, academically, socially, something going on in the family that they can't really talk about, but they can have a nod of the head from people to say, hey, we get that you've had a hard week and you're here, and all of a sudden we're having fun, and they can use that material to bring into their character work. And again, that's another release for them. As an actor, I've been acting many years. It's very therapeutic. I think acting, for me, really made a huge change in my life. I don't know who I would be if I hadn't, turned to acting at a young age.
And I was just really going to highlight that there's a therapeutic element to this for the individual that's participating in it. There's also peer-to-peer mentoring and really some asset development, because when we think about the strengths that people want to have in their lives, you're really providing that opportunity for them to develop those, whether it's leadership qualities or that ability to communicate and trust and feel like they belong. Those are all things that we want to develop in young people's lives early on. Well, I give Dave a moment to cue up some pictures that will demonstrate some of the work that and practice sessions that you're talking about. Do you have students from throughout the Monadnock region that are participating in the program?
We do. Mostly our students are from, the high school students from Keene High. We've had some homeschoolers that come sometimes. We've had students from the Monadnock region. And like I said before, it's difficult because of transportation, and that's something I'd like to see change. And then I work in the middle schools. I actually haven't been in yet. I'm starting this week working with different age groups, and some are co-ed and some are not, so I get a chance to work, just with girls, and then that brings a whole different element. The same with working with the boys. I'm looking forward to that, because you're able to. It's less distractions. People are more open, and we've also been trying for quite a while to get involved in the Winchester School District, and that's been a little bit tricky making that happen. But I'd love to branch out more, and also, one of the hopes for the future is to also work more with our adult population.
So we'll talk about that in a minute. Dave, do we have our pictures here ready to go so that we can share a little bit, and perhaps, Lindsay, you can talk about what people are seeing here in these pictures. So my understanding is this is practice sessions.
Right, and this is conflict resolution. And we didn't name it when we were doing it, but it's an exercise where you're having to see 2 points of view, and you switch backwards and forwards. So, one student might be, pro a certain, subject, another one, back and forth, pro, and against, and they're backwards and forwards. So just like that, they have to switch. And they have to be able to see both sides. This is an example of, look at that. These high schools just getting out there, and I said, we're going to work with music today. I'm also, you know, a dancer and do a lot of movement, and think that music can unleash us to, we get in touch with different parts of our emotions that we get stuck in our head as actors. And it was for me, when I started dancing, that it completely, I felt much more open, more options. So they're having to use their bodies. This is a group of students I work with out in Marlborough, and so some of the groups happen during the school day. This is an example of that. The students have different options midday that they can do, and this is a group of students. Another problem solving using their bodies, and I mean, they're just so totally involved here. And another one, problem solving. You know, here's the problem. You need to come together and find a way to resolve this problem and present the scene.
So these look like relatively young people, maybe
Yes.
12, 13?
Yes, yes. I think we have a 14-year-old too. Yes, yes.
So
they're
that
younger.
middle school age.
Yes.
We're seeing, and that looks like a parent or a faculty
That's actually
member.
one of our guidance counselors, and when we go into the schools, the guidance counselors are present also, which is nice. And so we work with the guidance counselors a little bit, you know, make sure, you know, and are there any particular issues that have come up? What's going on in the school right now? We try and address the you know, the culture of the day, and
I think that's a nice sort of liaison between both the school and the students.
Yes.
and really bridging what
Yes.
could become a gap between
Yes.
what they may be learning through this.
yes, yes.
Looks like here we have another problem-solving exercise.
This is creative expression. Find ways to talk with your body as well as with your words. Some students, you know, for them, they don't have the best verbal skills in the world. This student is definitely not an example of that. But I encourage them to not always use their voices. Power, who's got the power here? You know, we talk a lot about that. You know, who's in the power position? And this is just a little group exercise we do to do with rhythm. And that, you know, develops good team playing, listening to each other.
I find it interesting that this particular group is all boys. It's all young men.
Oh, there's actually a girl somewhere in here, I know. But yes, yes. And we go through phases with that, you know. It's, yeah.
So fun to see you out in action. That was actually out in Marlborough.
Yes, yeah.
So you are out in different schools. Are you
Yes.
up on the east side of the mountain at all?
We have been, not this year. I'm hoping to next year, but Eric and Jody, who was before Eric, spent time in the Conville district and Hillsborough. And that's something that we would love to do, but our staffing, it's just me right now.
So let's talk about some of the challenges the program may have, or some of the needs that you may have. And they may not necessarily be challenges. They may just be ways the community can support you right now.
Yes.
So I know you have some upcoming events, but before we talk about that, what are some of the volunteer needs you may have, or ways people can be involved in supporting you?
Well, first of all, if anyone is even interested, you know, come talk to me. You know, I'd like to know why they're interested, and we'll find a slot for them to volunteer. It depends. I have an intern right now from, you know, Keene State College, and we hope to develop that, so we have more interns. So we have an intern, at least one or two throughout the school year, and that's good for Keene State College. It's good for us, good for the students, it's good for that's a
Incredible
win-win situation.
resource we have
Absolutely,
here in the region is through our students.
Yes, we have a young woman right now who's in a substance abuse program. You know, she'll be, you know, graduating, and she's getting a very different view than a lot of her peers. She's looking more at the preventative. You know, what is it that these students, you know, are going to develop that's going to help them not make those you know, unhealthy choices. Volunteers, let's see. Well, this New Year's Eve, for the first time, ActingOut sponsored a New Year's Eve party. We wanted a place, an alternative place for kids to come, substance-free. We couldn't have done it without the volunteers. We had a volunteer that is a musician, and he loves to donate his services to nonprofits. That's what he does. So he came with all his equipment, and he sang, and he played music, and it was, you know, it was, the kids loved the music. He knew what he was doing. Other people that came and, you know, supervised, chaperoned there in the shadows to be there, you know, for help, to clean up, to set up, to cook. So we must have had about 6 volunteers that night. Another time when we need volunteers is the annual Improvathon, which I think this is going to be our 9th, and the students commit to 24 hours of non-stop improvising. So it's a 24-hour event, and of course we have to have volunteers. So, you know, we like to have 2 volunteers, you know, doing 2-hour slots, so that's a lot of
I know you have volunteers for that particular event, and I know you've had huge support from the community in area businesses in terms of giving donations for that particular event. Is that another way that people can support you?
Absolutely. And you know, we know that businesses, I have to just say this, all you businesses out there, I understand how many people come by to solicit from you, and I have found the generosity. I mean, it's just been incredible. This year we're having the Improvathon the same month as the, you know, Men Who Cook event, so we're being very careful and asking for too much, but people have been incredibly generous.
So let's talk about a couple of those upcoming events that you have going on, because you have something this weekend, in fact.
We do. So I don't know if the camera can see this, but the Yoga Center, by the way, on Roxbury Street, which is a wonderful new resource for our community, they are sponsoring, they actually sponsor a different nonprofit every month, and March they've chosen Acting Out, which I love, and there are a lot of similarities to what yoga can offer as to what, you know, improv, you know, can offer. And so we are giving a demonstration, myself and students, on Saturday night, this coming Saturday, that's the 7th, at the yoga studio, and oh my goodness, what number is that? It's on Roxbury Street, right next to the playing field of the old middle school. And we will be giving the general public, families, an opportunity to play with us. Totally safe, non-threatening. We're not going to ask people to get up and you know, act on stage alone. It's just a chance to have fun. So it's a free. We always accept donations, of course, but if you can come, please do. It's from 7 to 9 p.m. on Saturday night.
So that's one of the upcoming events. You have Men Who Cook, which is an annual event.
Oh my gosh.
And can you tell the audience a little bit about what that's about?
Men Who Cook happens every year, and again, I'm so grateful for this event because you know, we get, you know, all the proceeds go to Acting Out, and it's an evening of incredible cooks. Men who offer their services, and there's every food will be there, and each of these cooks has their specialty meal, and we take over at the Keene State Dining Commons, which is a large space, and it's full. So much wonderful good food, and that is on the 14th, and I think that we're going to be, are we talking more about that? No, actually we're not. So the 14th, Keene State Dining Commons, and you can get tickets from United Way. I don't know where else, maybe tickets.
Probably right through Monadnock
Family Services. Yes, RSVP 64th Main Street. You can get tickets, and I believe it's $25 a ticket, and I think under 10 is maybe $7. But I will tell you, when you think about what it costs to go out for a meal, and tip and dessert and everything else, and what a great cause to be supporting. So if you can come, please do.
And the food is just fabulous. Really, it's like getting a gourmet meal.
It really is.
For the night. So well worth it. You're not only getting a great meal, you're supporting a great cause. So wonderful opportunity for our audience to participate in supporting Acting Out, which is a program, by the way, of Monadnock Family Services. If people wanted to know more about these upcoming events, Would they go to the Monadnock Family Services website? Is there a place they can find out?
They could also go to Facebook. They can go onto the Acting Out page. There's two pages. There's the active participants, which they wouldn't be able to get on unless they were part of Acting Out, but there's also another page, and it will be posted there.
And what's the address to that, Lindsay?
Address is, oh my gosh, you're going to ask me that. Well, it's just Facebook Acting Out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they could also go to the Monadnock Family Services website, which is just mfs.org.
Absolutely. They can certainly find out about Men Who Cook on there. They won't get information about the workshop. This is something that's sponsored by the Yoga Space. But you can also get information on Acting Out by going to the Yoga Center on Roxbury Street. And there's a bulletin board and information about our program there. Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about some of these collaborations. You mentioned the Yoga Center for this. You have men from the community who come in and support the program. Yes. But prior to the show, you and I were talking, and you've gone out to programs like the Adult Care Services.
Yes.
And we know you go into the schools and you perform there. What are some of the other collaborations where you're bringing together perhaps an intergenerational unit, really, because that's an important part of peer mentoring as well?
Yes, yes it is. Well, you know, I'm newly in this position, so, you know, I have hopes and dreams.
Well, share those dreams.
So, you know, so far, and I have to be, you know, tread very carefully here, tend to, you know, like, okay, one step at a time. But one of the reasons that I was so excited about this position is my original work was in theater. For many years I performed, and I was part of a traveling troupe. In the early days of MOCO Arts, when it started, I developed an improvisation troupe. We called ourselves IT. And we went to various schools and communities, and yeah, we've gone to senior establishments and schools, and presented to first graders, you know, kindergartens and on up. And I love doing that, and that's something that I would like to develop again. What's different now is it's more issue related. Back then it was, you know, theater, fun, confidence building, which is great, but now I see it as a great venue for getting to these issues. And for several years, I've worked at a residential facility, part of Monadnock Family Services, and a lot of our clients who have some serious, you know, mental health issues, illnesses, I just have loved working with them and developing improv. You know, we have a few clients, just wonderful when they're given the opportunity to tap into their creativity, and sometimes these folks forget that they have that, you know, and so they're reminded, and we have some wonderful back and forth little improvisation scenes going on. So I'd love to explore that more down the road. And also, I really like the Adult Care Center in Jaffrey, and Chris and I worked together for a few years, a while ago, and so any excuse to go out there and be part of that program. So I've gone out a few times. I think it started by me being invited out at Christmas time to, you know, read the night before Christmas. And what I discovered is, you know, you go into this room and there's a lot of these seniors and folks that really, you know, need a place to go during the day for social time and meals and health care. And they're sitting in a circle, and they're so ready to be entertained. They're so ready to, you know, what's next? And so they're just delightful. So one day, just spontaneously, we started doing a little bit of improv, and one gentleman volunteered who really, really surprised me, got up, volunteered, and back and forth. And so that's another area. You know, tell us a story. What do you remember? Maybe it's one little story that a person maybe is battling dementia, but they have this little story. Okay, you know, so here are your actors. Who do you want to play you? Who do you want to play your husband who came over and gave you roses that day? And we play it back for them. And it's just very, very touching and beautiful. And what a way also to bridge that generational gap, to have young people doing this. You know, we really have lost that. You know, what happened to the young people and the elder relationship, you know?
Well, and the beauty of that is at the same time the young person is learning those feelings that person may have had and experiencing that. And I think in this technologically savvy world, we sometimes lose that aspect of what it felt like to give somebody a rose, and especially when you're young, you know, you're not necessarily having that experience yet in your life. So you're also bringing that you know, lifetime experience that a person's had right to that young person, and giving them an opportunity to explore that a little bit at a time. We have some really great testimonials from some of your folks, and I'm going to have Dave roll the testimonials, and we'll just listen to those. So audience, you know, stay tuned, because you're going to listen in and hear some of these young people who are impacted by this program and what they have to say about it. And then I'm going to ask you, Lindsay, when we finish that, to help us wrap up the show with really a personal story about how this has impacted somebody's life that you're serving. So if we can roll that video, Dave.
Thank you. Welcome to Education TV.
Well, these actually aren't the testimonials, but in a sense they are.
That Russia and the United States are becoming one.
So we're developing a very possibly controversial scene here.
Certainly be communism. Communism is the one true form of government.
New genre. Once I actually remember what a genre is.
Like horror.
So we're actually seeing the program in action.
This is a rehearsal where, and they're given different scenarios, different. This is a classic scene development. And this is a classic team building exercise. A lot of silliness, a lot of creativity, and some risk taking, and a very big issue. You know, I mean, these students get up and they need to come up with a topic, and all of a sudden this person is talking about communism, and you know, I mean, sometimes it's some heady stuff, and sometimes it's, you know, very light stuff, and sometimes it's very poignant, touching personal story that ends up, you know, coming out.
So let's talk about some of those personal stories, because I know this program has had tremendous impact. You shared about Eric, who had gone through the program from the time he was in middle school and ultimately became the staff person involved with facilitating the program. You mentioned before the show that there's a young person right now who's involved with the program, and that it's really having impact on their life. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, I mean, this is an example of a you know, of a student who you know, very comes into rehearsals and not sure if they really want to participate. You know, sets herself apart from the rest of the students and doesn't say much, but comes to the circle and participates as well as they can, but then keeps coming back and just putting in their foot a little bit deeper, a little bit, and sharing more and more, and starting to take a risk, just hearing our own voice, you know, being able to do that, and oh wow, you know, I actually said something. And then through the weeks of these students getting to know one another, we've started developing discussion groups, and at one of these discussion groups we were talking about sexuality, homelessness, teacher bullying, students just not feeling heard, the pressures that they're dealing with in school. And then this one student was able to say in a very clear voice, this is something that I just needs to be different, the way I'm treated, the way I'm not seen, the way I'm ignored. And poured her heart out about what it felt like, and she was given the opportunity to consider what could have helped you. And at that same time, we also considered the students who weren't helping her. Was it because they didn't care, or was it because they didn't know how to help, or they didn't? And it ended up, you know, becoming a very involved conversation. And this young person, by her having the courage to share this situation, it sparked other concerns, you know, and that maybe the student that you think of as not having such an issue as this had a completely different issue. So here they are seeing the other sides, and at the end of it, you know, she asked for what she really would have liked in that moment, and we gave it to her. We gave it to her, and by the end of it, you know, she didn't want to leave the space, and she's shared that that space has a whole different meaning now when she walks into that room of safety. And we can take those stories and move with them and actually turn them into little performances. So now she's given this gift, sharing something about herself that can help others in the audience who are going to see, oh my gosh, I can identify that, I can identify with that. I mean, that's one of many stories, but those are the sorts that we tend not to think about so much. You know, it's not a big story, and yet it has the potential to be very huge. You know?
It does, and I wanted to really have you share with the audience, what is the one thing you really want them to know about your program?
I want them to know that it's, if ever there's a child in their life or somebody they know that just feels like, there's nothing that I can hold on to. I don't feel like there's any place in my life where I'm really excelling, where I'm really, you know, I don't feel like I have anything to offer. Tell them about Acting Out. Have them come, because it feels like whoever comes to Acting Out, if it resonates with them, and if it doesn't, then they'll leave and find something else. But when it does, it really does. And it's a place where for some students, they can say it's the first place that they really feel, oh my gosh, they start to recognize what they have to offer, instead of feeling like deficits. They come and they know that they're enough. And that's what I want people to know. You know, it's an opportunity for them to shine, whether or not they're interested in performing, whether or not they've ever had any interest in theater. It's about so much more. And they're being a member of the audience, and just listening is as valuable as being on stage.
So it sounds like both the student and a parent even could reach out through the guidance office of any of our area schools to see how they can connect, because you have programs running both in the Keene School District, but you also have a program available that's open to any student from the Monadnock region to attend.
Absolutely.
So they could also reach out through Monadnock Family Services directly. And again, this is Lindsay Bartlett that I'm talking with today. So you can contact Lindsay directly through the mfs.org website. The phone numbers are there. You can also call the United Way here in the Monadnock region. We'll be happy to refer you over to Lindsay and provide that phone number. And, you know, as always, we mention to citizens here in the Monadnock region that if you're ever looking for resources, if you're in need of support, Lindsay's talked about other health issues today that you may have concerns about. Acting Out may not meet those particular needs that you have, but you can always reach out through 211. And you just dial that number, and they will refer you to wherever they can match you up. Lindsay's doing some incredible programming with our youth here in the Monadnock region. We are so fortunate to have things like Acting Out occurring here. And it sounds like some new energy, some, you know, new ways perhaps of approaching this.
Maybe,
and people have an opportunity this Saturday to come out and try improv.
Please, yes. I mean, if you have any teenagers or young people in your life, you want to come as a family, it's a great opportunity. And I just want to add one more thing, is that a lot of our teens and young people feel like nothing they can do makes a difference. Maybe they have had a hard time of it. Maybe they have been treated unfairly. This is their opportunity to come to Acting Out and share those concerns. They will be heard. This program is being developed on the needs of our students and the stories I'm hearing, you know, so this is a chance for them to come. They want things to be different. Come to Acting Out. You want things to change? Come, tell us your ideas. We need you. And there's a new young initiative going on right now that's specifically asking, you know, for voices of our young people to change how we meet your needs. So.
And I apologize, audience, but sometimes the lights cause me to
Yes.
cough. They get warm in here and dry. So, Lindsay, I really want to thank you for being here. You know, people, again, audience, you have an opportunity this Saturday to participate as a family. Is there any age limitation on that?
I suggested 10 and up, but if you have younger students, it wouldn't probably be too much. You know, it depends. I mean, I don't think there's going to be any heavy issue content. It's mostly fun, playing games. So, you know, and if there were younger students there, we take that into account. So just come and take a risk. And even if you don't want to participate, sit on the sidelines, you know, and, you know, see what we do.
So, audience, there's opportunities to participate this Saturday. There's certainly on the 14th of March the availability to attend and get some good food at the Men Who Cook event. And again, you can contact Monadnock Family Services or the United Way regarding tickets for that. And finally, if you are interested in volunteering or really participating in a different way with this program, please reach out to Lindsay. Always looking, it sounds like, for some volunteers, whether
Absolutely.
it's for chaperoning events or perhaps really transportation, or perhaps really getting involved in the improv itself and co-directing.
Yes, you never know.
So tap into all those hidden talents you may have out there, folks, and really, you know, opportunity to have some fun at the same time to really be promoting the health and the wellness of our citizens here in the Monadnock region. I want to thank Lindsay for joining us tonight, and I want to thank you for watching in, and I want to remind you to please remember to give, volunteer, advocate. You are part of Living United here in the Monadnock region. Thanks for being with us.
I like acting out because it's fun. I get to hang out with my friends. I get to just do whatever I want that pertains to the scene. I don't have to think about it, and if I do think about it, I know it'll be accepted as long as I'm not shooting down other ideas.
I like acting out because it's so much fun. It gives me a chance to be myself, and it gives me new experiences that I've never had before. I like acting out because it helps me create different scenes for more diverse things. So kind of like really funny scenes that could be used later by other people, or I could talk about it with my friends because my friends are here too.
I like acting out because I enjoy having fun, enjoy doing whatever I want, and I know that anything I do will be accepted by everyone here, and I get to hang out with my friends.